Good afternoon, everyone. Another one of the simple kind of projects. Actually, a fairly decent seller for me. It's a craft places. Light is definitely in the wrong place. Throwing shadow on things. So what I just marked out is this lid. Would help if I had a jar to go with it. So you see what we're doing. So we'll put this jar. We'll make a wooden lid for this jar. It'll be a honey pot, honey dipper pot, so to speak. Right now we need to recess that lid into that area. Is the first order of business. And get rid of some of this with the bowl gouge first. Make it a little easier. And I won't go out to my line though. I'll do that with a scraper. I'll be much better off doing that. Could set a depth gauge. Might make this a little easier. So we know where we got to go to. I got to get down another eighth of an inch. At least in the middle. This should just save me a little bit of work. Make it a little quicker, a little easier. We get the center point down closer to where we need it to be first. And we'll go to our scrapers to make it flat. And then we get to play the game of fitting the lid. Getting the lid. I'm getting better at this. I make enough of these. It could actually have been a little snugger in there, but that's okay. The glue will take the rest up. Needs to go down a little bit more. Into there. That should now We're still not quite deep enough, I don't believe. Feels like there's a little bit of a ridge out there. I can see it now that I look. I think we got enough. We'll just create a little bit of a tiny little bit of a recess for that little beaded rim to go across. Clean that face up. Recess can go a shade deeper. Not a big shade though. There we go. And that fits. Here's one of the kind of the bit of a pain in making these is to mark a center point. I'll have to drill that out, which is a bit of a challenge too. It's very thin. We'll get that second. So we'll grab a drill bit. Generally speaking, it's going to be a 3/8 drill bit. There'll be a handle goes up and through there. Why is this thing still? I still got some work to do. Weird. When you want it to do two separate streams, it doesn't want to do it. Now it wants to do it every single time. So drill that hole a little bit, real, a little deeper than the drill bit is, which will give me a little bit over a 1/2 inch, something like that. The plan is not to make a separate lid. At least that's, or separate knob. Stuff's a little bit thinner than what I had been working with to do these, but we'll see. So give this outside a little shape, and then we will have to sand this edge and a little bit up in here. So we have the best end of a 1/2 inch of material there, which is always a plus. I'll probably do most of this with the bowl gouge. And I could possibly go to there. Yeah, it'll work. So give it a little bit of a cove from both sides, keeping in mind that there's space in there. I don't want these to be super heavy. So I'll make that cove there. Trusty razor blade goes away. And of course we're back to everybody's favorite pastime. There's really only one time for me to get it at this bottom, the very bottom, and that's right now. So we'll have to do a little bit of sanding. This is another project of sand as you go, as is a lot of the projects. So I shouldn't have to start out with anything very coarse in there. Should be a 220 and go kind of situation. I will send some dust collection on, turn some dust collection on. I really just need to sand this little outside edge around that corner, nice and neat. There's really no point in sanding anything in there. It just gets glued. That piece, the lid will get glued in with epoxy. So it's just a matter of finishing this little outside edge, bottom edge. Then we'll be able to reach everything else easy enough. Probably should have changed my chuck jaws to the shark jaws rather than these. We'll see what it looks like. We might have to do that. Because now we're going to flip it around. Now grab it using this as a recess. I'll put that in there. Yeah, shoot. Unfortunately, it only takes a minute to do things the right way. I could possibly get away with that, but I don't. There's no point in working uptight against the jaws. It's just not in my best interest in this case. So you get to see how quick and easy it is. If I get the camera in the right place. Yeah, there we go. I generally start with number 1, just helping me from getting confused. Always a plus not to drop anything on the ground as well. So by putting the long jaws back on it, it will give us more room to be able to work both ways on that cove. Lots of people out there just buying more chucks rather than changing jaws. I have that with the bigger chucks. I'm fortunate enough to own 3 of them. You know, people that own 15, 20 different chucks just because they don't want to change jaws. To me, that's kind of an unnecessary expense. Would be nice in some ways to have 2 of this size here. Technically I do, but it's one. The other one is for the small lathe. And unfortunately, these pretty much never go on sale. The only time you can get any kind of benefit as far as that goes is if their shipping rate is $5 or something like that, or free. I mean, this particular size would come in price tag with jaws. Although I probably would, if I bought another one of these, I probably would not buy it with jaws. I would probably get it without jaws. And it puts them down 260, 270 area. With jaws are about 300. But they last. So this is one of the areas that I would highly recommend buying right the first time, so you're not buying multiple ones, because the chuck is not of the quality or durability of the higher end, the better quality chucks. So that's not too big of a deal. Probably would be nice. I don't know that I can do it though easily. A clear one. I can get an idea, sort of semi-close idea where that bottom of that hole is at. I always put a little knob on these, but I could possibly look at one without a knob. Or I could make a knob separate. Which is always a possibility of just making a separate. So we'll just expand out. Smaller chuck, smaller jaws. It is going to expand out pretty far. We're really only gripping on 4 individual points in there, but it's really more than enough grip strength. At this point, if you were concerned about that, I already have a live center hole in there, but we could always bring the live center up for a little bit, just so we get closer. Sort of would be a situation where you got it, you might as well use it and make life safer for you. So now we can proceed on. And this should spin true. We did everything right. That part will spin true. So bring it up to the speed that you're comfortable with. Sort of make a complete sort of a cove in there. Maybe a good idea to actually look again, see where we're at. So, and there's the bottom of that hole. I think this one's going to be a knobless one. I think I will run that around there. I'll cut it off, I'm sure. I already get rid of the last one. Now if this will cooperate. I don't know if I have this one set right. There we go. Into the dual view. So we know for sure, first order of business is get rid of what we don't want, don't need. Life center's still not quite where it should be. That was in using the life center, so there's a point in there. So we know we don't want that in our finished piece. So we can sort of start rounding this over. So we stop the lathe to move the tool rest. Actually, like in this case, there's a razor blade right there that when you touch that while it's spinning, and get it where I want it anyhow. So we'll just make this more of a dome shape on top. All reality is you're going to grab it out here anyhow. If it doesn't suit me, I could also put there's our drill hole inside. About 5/8 of material in there. The drill hole certainly could go up in. Yeah, I was thinking wrong. A drill hole can go up inside. These can go right up inside that. Yes. So let's go on the side of bigger versus smaller. So 1 inch. And it's topper. Also, I'm going back to doing it the right way. And I need one more other measurement. This is for shallow. You should drop the tape roller. So we're about 1/2 inch, only about 1/2 inch deep on the inside. So the inside measurement would be down in here as to how far it goes up. So we can come down closer to that area. One of these deals, you can't any more than make the inside bigger than the outside bigger than the inside. It's only a little piece of wood, so if you do that, it's not really the end of the world. Just sort of getting a rough shape right now. Take that down a little smaller. I want it to be a little tapered. So there's our mark on the inside. So we're still a quarter of an inch above that. Wondering what I heard. That's not a nice feature to have. I kind of want to get rid of that. Or not. It's a little deeper than what I thought it was. So at this rate, I'd say we're not going to get rid of that. Just round that over a little bit. That should be good enough. As good as we're going to get out of this piece of wood anyhow. So we can redo this little cove part, drop it down a little bit. We got about 3/8 of an inch of material in there. Stick with the bowl gouge rather than spindle gouge though. Cove wants to meet in the middle. Touch those little edges because they're very sharp. And we're right back to a sanding square one kind of a thing. Guess before we waste our time sanding, we might as well take a little peek at what we got. There's our metal piece for a jar. Of course, it would be better to put it in the jar first. So there's what we're looking at for that. We need to make another little cut. Left a really jagged edge. I think we're also going to drop that dome. Give it a little bit more. That's plenty thick. Thicker than it needs to be. I don't want to give up design for that. So we'll drop her down some more. And we'll be happy with what we get at the end. Hopefully. Going to give me a little bit bigger of a knob to get a hold of. Probably could even go in there a little bit, maybe with the scraper. It's not real bad. It's still going to leave that hole no matter what I do in there. For sure. Round that edge over a little bit more there. do it with the tool rather than sandpaper at that point. There's some really nice little fine shavings. That was actually done with a spindle gouge. Drop the handle down, it's a shear scraping action. So it's very efficient. Because this is not a project that we want to see how long it takes us to sand, for sure. We'll drop our speed back to sand. In order to sand this cove, I'm actually going to go in reverse. It just finds it easier for me and my fingers. So if I use my finger in the groove, my finger's not cooperating today. I could use something round. Actually could use the end of the tool, which is nice and round. Get in there. Gives it too small of a point for me. Let's go back in reverse. A little bit of picked up grain in there. Can't have that. You can get it going the other direction. It's got the majority of it. So now we'll just go through the grits. Sandpaper is just like your tools. It's got to be sharp. You notice if you're paying attention, that little piece that was 220 that I was using right there. It wasn't cutting, no longer was cutting in there, so I literally just said I'm going to do the same thing with this. Peel off that end ½ inch, and now I have fresh sandpaper. Just to cut in so I can get into that edge real easily. Grab a bit of paper towel. Wipe it off. Stop, take a peek and make sure we're all right. The reason for the paper towel is to make sure that we get any loose grit that might be there of the previous grit. Otherwise, we could be just putting the same scratches right back in to the piece that we're trying to remove. Looks good. I think I'll do one more grit. Last one was 400. I usually, when I'm sanding by hand like this, I usually will go to 600 just to make the scratches smaller, much smaller. It takes a couple seconds really to do it and go over it. Make sure all of the sharp edges are gone. This is certainly something somebody's going to touch a lot, so that's pretty much our lid complete. So while I'm at this point, I might as well actually finish it. My finish choice is the Parfix 3408, which is this low setting super glue. This will take one coat. Has no odor, no reaction to paper towels like some of the super glues would have. It'd be a one coat and done. We will do it spinning as slow as the lathe will go, which in my case is like 140 RPM, something like that. I'm going to put a nice liberal coat. What we're looking to do is fill the pores of the wood. I'm careful, I should be able to get in here. Get a little bit of a bumpy finger ride, but get right in there to that edge that's going underneath the chuck. Very simple product to use. Wipe on, wipe off the excess, and it will get buffed on a buffing wheel tomorrow sometime, or the next day, or whenever. So what I'm doing now is just wiping off the excess. That's all we're doing. You can't leave the excess sitting on the surface. If it can't soak in, it doesn't know what to do. So it just sits there in a little bead and maybe look like a well-waxed car after a rainstorm. So we don't want that. So that's our lid complete. I will give it a little bit of activation, about 18-24 inches away, spraying so the mist just lands down on it rather than up here, up close and personal. Keep my glove on for the moment. Give this 30 seconds or so to set up. So there's where we're at so far with that. Still tacky. So I'll just put it over top of the lid. The lid sits just proud of the base. So I can sit that off to the side and be good to go. These jars come from Hobby Lobby. They are $2.99 a piece. Was there a week or so ago. And just as luck would have it, is that they were at 40% off. So we need about 3 1/8. I'm trying to remember that. The next thing we got to make is the honey dipper part that goes down in the piece with a tenant on the top. A tenant will go up through the lid and into the handle. So we'll go between centers. Which will be the same bit of cherry or somewhere thereabouts. It's a little stick of cherry and it's probably about, I'm going to say, an inch. So this will all be strictly overhead. So about an inch, something like that. Not even real square, but doesn't really matter. It's way bigger than what it needs to be. So we'll just mark some half-ass centers. We could just, something like this, we could literally guess at it if we wanted to. We'll put a punch mark in each end. And we will put it between centers. Step center on the drive, live center on the end. Live center has a very small cone on it. Wouldn't necessarily have to, but that cone right there, if I remember correctly, oh, I can't get the piece. That cone is actually pretty close to 3/8 of an inch. So I pretty much am going to know about where my tenant is going to be that's going to go up through there. Longer tool rest. Tool rest height is nice and high because we will go, this is the kind of project that you work with a skew. At least that's my philosophy in it. That way you get much better at using it, more comfortable using it. Tool rest is just a shade on the high side. Not quite round yet. We're out of cylinder there. And just make the rest out of the cylinder. So we know we definitely want to leave ourselves, in this case we have a lot of room, so we're going to leave ourselves a fair amount of waste down there. This will be the end of the honey dipper. Get rid of some waste. Just so we have a little bit more room to move. I think the last time with these I only made it about an inch long. Can always take more off, so we'll go about an inch and an eighth, something thereabouts. These want to be fairly small. The jar's not that big. Lots of V cuts to get rid of the corner. Some can go deeper, much deeper than that. Can also get rid of some material. Don't want to get rid of too terribly much. Definitely looks like it's too big around. This sort of wants to be I don't know what you would want to call the shape. A little rounded. Rounded into that corner. A little bit more V cuts just to loosen it up a little bit more. I like the long point for getting down into those places. For me, it works for me. Works better for me, put it that way. I can see more what I'm doing, which is always important. Certainly can do that with the spindle gouge. Probably easier in some ways with the spindle gouge. I'll sort of flatten out the middle. I worked hard to get it round. We'll flatten it back out a little bit because it's too big around in my opinion. Getting there. For me, I leave the bottom of these sort of a rounded kind of a ball, almost flat. I don't want to take it down too turbo far. I already took it down farther than I probably should have. I will, like I said, I'm much more comfortable using the spindle gouge in this area. So I'll make my curve more what I think it should be into there, down into there. I'm also creating myself a problem because it's starting to get to where it's going to be thin down there. Like I say, it'll only be 3 inches long. So V groove, another V groove, another one, another one. Somewhere for the honey to cling to, I guess you'd want to call it. One of the things that we could do to maybe make it look a little different, dressier maybe, could grab my burning wire and actually burn the bottom of each one of them. Piece of guitar string is what it is. On handles too. I want to do that barehanded. So it's pretty much that. I will probably could give it just a quick sand. Just this part up here. And this is not a real fine kind of a sand. I will get in there, stick the rounded part in that hole, in that slot, just so that it rounds those edges a little bit. So we don't have anything real sharp. So that was 220. We'll do 320 and that'll be it. This piece will get finished with beeswax, so we're very forgiving as long as we don't have nothing torn, which we shouldn't. So we said we needed about 3 1/8, somewhere thereabouts. That's what we're going to call it. I hope for the best. It wouldn't be the first time that I made one of these and I made it too long. It's not really the end of the world. You can just sand a little bit off of that end if you have to. Up here we'll make a little bit of a parting tool cut. So we know where it ends at, or close to where it ends. It's definitely going to talk to us quite quick. My version of talking to me is it's already starting to make noise because we've taken a little bit more material out of there than what we maybe should have. That means we're going to have to go slow, make nice little softer cuts. Because we're trying to make a long, slender cove. Actually, my best bet would actually be to go to a smaller skew. A little lighter in weight, so I will be putting less pressure on it. At least that's the plan. This one I know is sharp. I can feel the grinder burr on it. And I'm just going to take it over the diamond hone once or twice on each side. In this case, I want to get rid of that little burr. Tool rest height should be all right. It was a little heavier cut than what I wanted. You could hear it chattering. I guarantee you what you were hearing is chatters. And there's chatter marks up there at the top. We got our shape down in there. Well, I don't feel them. So maybe we were lucky. And we were. It definitely was talking to me. It did not like what I just did to it. A little undercut underneath that rim. Once again, sand as you go, sort of. So just a little 220, 320, and we're done. Actually, at this point, we could probably should, I lose more of my mass of material. That's that little razor blade, so it's not a razor blade. Would be to actually grab the beeswax and actually finish that bottom part off. But this is pretty much done. We'll cut it off down here. At least that's the general plan of it. A little bit of mineral oil in there. That actually has a little bit more than what it probably maybe could or should have in it. Just makes the beeswax softer, especially doing it on something small like this. You don't have to put as much pressure up against it to make it melt. The next challenge is actually to get in those little grooves. I don't want to leave a big glob of beeswax in there. Sort of in all practical purposes, that's finished down in that area. Just set a pair of dividers to hopefully to this hole that we drilled. or at least close to it. Can also use the drill bit to check against it. This is one of the times that I will go a little bit smaller rather than bigger on that hole. Also would have been a good idea to know how long I needed it, but that doesn't really have a whole lot of bearing on what we're doing. You definitely don't want to be very aggressive, because it definitely one should have two of this style calipers. It would be good to know how deep that hole is. The hole's not as deep as what I would have thought it was. So we're more than enough. So that we can just cut off up in there. That will do with the saw. We'll try and get accurate, halfway accurate measurement on it. So now we're back down to this end and we will cut it free, or at least almost free. This is a spring-loaded drive center, so cutting it totally free might not necessarily be the best of there. Yeah. Should also measure again. 3 1/8, so that should work. I'll put the tool on the lathe bed. It'll come back to bite you. Get rid of some more material back here so it has a place to cut off. Also just released a fair amount of the pressure that the tailstock was holding on with. We will have a little bit of cleanup on the end. Not that big of a deal. Could always use the little disc sander on the end. I don't think there's enough there to warrant getting that out. Just a tiny bit of handwork. And keep in mind, it is just a honey dipper, so we're not a piece of gallery piece or something like that. It's just a simple hand honey dipper in a jar. I just put a little bit more beeswax on the end, seal that up. The honey will do the rest. It will soak into the wood as they use it. I'm just trying to get all the dirt, beeswax, and whatnot out of them grooves. Thought I got it out while I was spinning. Obviously, I didn't do as good a job as I thought I did. Go fingernail in there on our paper towel. one would assume that most of these people would. So 3 1/8 to there. Thought I set this step. Another bit of about that much. Trying to hold it and get an idea where it's at. Somewhere in about that area. What we're going to call it. Put it that way. I'll just use a Japanese pull saw. Probably better off if I do it on a little block of wood. Might make it easier for me. Move a couple things out of the road. So I don't. Live center's still in there, so screwing around right here, we could just as easily. If we widen that out a bit. Why not? Go that way. There we go. Just using my little V block just to support that other end. I see lots of people do that with a bandsaw or something like that. I mean, you certainly could, but it's not worth the aggravation. So there's our. I can't put it on the lid. There we would be. This is going to fall out. So we're about 1/8 of an inch off the bottom, which is to me a good place to be. That's kind of our simple-minded project for the day. And like I say, they do sell fairly well. I guess there's still enough people out there in the world that uses honey. The only thing I'm left with is to finish drilling this hole, which I marked in the lid. That'll probably go like one size above 3/8. I will drill that on the drill press to try and get a cleaner, smoother hole. And I do not have a camera there, so I can't show you what that looks like. But otherwise, that's going to be it for today. Why did my speech chat not talk to me? Really? Huh. My apologies, I missed that. I have it on. Huh. Hmm. Wonders of modern technology. Yeah, I know, Billy. It ain't Sunday, but we've been doing some of these during the week, late afternoon, something like that. I'm gonna be here doing, working, so this is what we've done. But until next time, you all have a wonderful rest of your day and the rest of the week. And yes, if you didn't already hit that subscribe button, that would be wonderful if you would do that for me. If you're still watching, if you haven't done so. Until next time, everybody have a good rest of your day.